So there I was, traveling in a fried out combi on a hippie trail, head full of zombie. I met a strange lady. She made me nervous, but took me in and made me some breakfast. As I made my way to the front door, I noticed a funny looking car poking it out of the garage. It looked familiar, but different at the same time. As her muscle-bound male companion handed me a Vegemite sandwich, I asked them, "Hey, what's the deal with that red car in the garage?" They said, it comes from a land down under. And I was like, cool. It's the company that gave Oz a car to call its own, giving birth to some of the most serious down under icons along the way. You Aussies asked for it and we're gonna give it to you. This is everything you need to know to get up to speed on Holden. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
Oi, oi, oi. You like my new hair?
Speaking of Holden, if you like holding on to the hair that you already have, try Keeps. It's super easy and all you do is consult with a doctor who helps you find the right treatment for keeping your hair. Then it's shipped to your door every 3 months. You don't even have to wait in a dang waiting room. And unlike most other services that deliver to your door, Keeps is super affordable, only $10 to $35 a month. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. If you use our code, you get your first month for free. Enough said, Daddy-O. To receive your first month of treatment for free, go to keeps.com/up-to-speed. That's KEEPS.com/up-to-speed. Now back to some Australian V8 fun. Holden is an Australian institution bearing the standard for speed demons all over the land of the Southern Cross. The Commodore, the Monaro, the Torana, are all names that any self-respecting roo-riding Aussie knows. They hold the same prestige as the Commodore, GTO, and Nova do over here in the States. As a matter of fact, some of their cars actually made it here in disguise, and we will talk about those later.
And let's get ready.
The Holden Company opened its doors in 1856, making saddles for horses. After about 50 yards of handcrafted saddles for some beautiful, majestic, buff-ass steeds, Holden decided to shift gears, getting into the auto body game. What they would do is build bodies for imported GMs and Fords, then stick a little Holden badge on the finished car. They weren't completely Aussie-built machines, but it was a start. In 1931, my dad was born, and GM bought Holden, merging it with GM Australia. Out of the marriage came General Motors Holden Ltd. The company was stoked to get building some authentic Aussie automobiles, but would have to wait until after the end of Dub Dub 2. During the war, Holden manager Lawrence Hartnett was plucking some shrimp off the Barbie, enjoying a can of Coopers, when he got an idea. Hey, I've got an idea. How about we build our own car for our own country, built by Australians? That would be awesome, hey mate? But Lawrence was alone, with no one but a single kookaburra keeping him company. The bird just laughed a laugh and flew off into the sunset. Cuckoo, kookaburra. Even so, Lawrence knew it was a sign. With every flap of that magnificent bird's wings, his lungs filled with an exuberant fervor. He hurried up and ended World War II and rushed home to get started on his car. That's what happened, look it up. While Holden's reskinned GMs were good, they weren't tailored to Australia's unique road conditions and lifestyle.
Been here nearly half a day now and just no traffic at all.
He wanted a car that would split the difference between small British town cars and beefy American sedans. Holden sent a team over to Detroit to work with RoboCop and GM on building this new car. What came back was the Holden 48-215. And in 1948, it was the first car manufactured in Australia. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie!
Oi, oi, oi.
Farmers wanted a Holden, but didn't want to ruin the back seat after throwing a few sheep back there. They love their sheep. They wanted something with a bed, or as they call it down there, a tray, which makes more sense and is way less creepy if you think about it. Why do I need a bed in my car? Holden got cracking on a more practical 48-215 or coupe utility. In 1950, they took the car, put a freaking bed on it, and unleashed it on the outback. With both Holden and their rivals at Ford producing car truck things, Australians would now forever have a ute to call their own. About 10 years later, in the early 60s, the country had a growing obsession with a little thing called racing. Australia's biggest race was a 500-kilometer run around the Mount Panorama Circuit and Bathurst. It was a big deal because every car on the track had to be stock, meaning the cars you saw winning were the ones you could buy. It's just like my dad used to say, win on Sunday, sell James's bike for poker money on Monday. Touring car racing in Australia is basically how NASCAR here is in the US. Winning at Bathurst is like winning at Daytona or Talladega. In the beginning, the race was dominated by small, nimble little Brits like the Ford Cortina, Mini Cooper, and Warwick Davis. This was until Ford developed their Falcon GT, powered by a scrappy little V8. It dominated the long stretches of the track and got Holden thinking, maybe we should do that, mate. All right. Holden designer Peter Nankervis started drawing up a new car on the back of his little Trapper Keeper. The looks were undeniably GM, but distinctly Australian. Peter's design made its debut in 1968, named for a southern region in New South Wales, Monaro. And what's a sweet car without a sweet theme song? Nothing!
And life is suddenly very Monaro. It's very Monaro this year. Monaro.
Holden's objective with the Monaro was to make sporty driving accessible to every Australian. Fun cars from other countries came with high price tags. But since the Monaro was built in Australia, it was more affordable. So the Monaro would be powered by 327s imported from America. The engine made a respectable 250 buff kangaroos and took the Monaro to the next level. It was time to take it to the track where the car was first dreamed up. October 6, 1968, a day that would live in the hearts of Aussie auto racing devotees forever. Both the Monaro and the Falcon GT were entered in Class D, a precursor to today's V8 supercar. After a hard-fought battle of over 500 kilometers, 3 Holdens stood on the podium. A fact made even more impressive by the fact that there's only 3 spots on a podium. You got your first, you got your second, you got your third. Holden. In the 1970s, vans were taking over the US. Nothing says, hey man, I like to party, like a van with shag carpet, a mattress, and an airbrush frickin' wizard on the side of it. Things weren't much different in Australia. All the kids were buying vans of their own to party in. And Holden took notice. Holden's head of design, Leo Pernot, had an idea. Hey mate, how about we go put a Monaro front on one of our Belmont panel vans? I bet the kids will really like that, eh? Sure. But the modified Belmonts flew off the dealership lot. Holden knew they had something. Across the tailgate read one of the greatest names in automotive history, Sandman. Say your prayers, sleep with one eye open, gripping your pillow tight, in your van! The Sandman was in production for only 6 years, but left a huge mark in the hearts of hard partying Aussies all over the country. Few of you may have been conceived in one. Racing had become an integral part of Holden's brand identity, but unlike the Monaro, this little guy
was a little guy.
The Torana was a compact car, great for economical commuting and city living. That was until Holden took a few of them and outfitted them for Bathurst domination. It was a pretty rad combination that racked up back-to-back Bathurst wins, but the L34 had a few big flaws. The rear drum brakes were flimsy and prone to overheating. The transmission and rear diff kind of sucked too. With Ford's Falcon XB GT quickly catching up, it was clear that the Torana had to be faster. The L34 was now called the A9X. Holden completely redesigned the rear suspension and replaced those crappy drum brakes with some state-of-the-art things called discs. The 5-liter V8 made 146 kilowatts and 406 Newton meters of torque. For you Americans that don't know the Queen's maths, that's 220 buff forces and 300 Turks. Hashtag Queen's maths. And you can't talk about the A9X without mentioning perhaps the coolest part. These real, functional, bolt-on fender flares so big tires can fit underneath. This is why I love Holden and you should love Holden. They put a freaking Rocket Bunny kit on a 4-door sedan. Unfortunately, the Torana did not continue the Holden Bathurst win streak, but it did win the Australian Touring Car Championship in 1978 and 79. The A9X finally won at Bathurst by a whole 6 laps in 1979, which helped launch the career of legendary Aussie raceman Peter Brock.
Oh, he's almost in trouble that time. I don't think I've seen Peter Brock so far out of line for...
Fast forward a few years, it's 1986. John Farnham's You're the Voice is ruling the Australian airwaves. Crocodile Dundee is absolutely destroying at the box office. And Holden is refreshing their Commodore mid-size car. Throughout its life so far, the Como was available with Holden-designed inline 6s or small V8s, but all that was about to change. Starting in January of '86, every car made in Australia had to run 91 octane fuel. This was a problem because Holden's engines couldn't run on 91 octane fuel. Blimey! It would be too expensive to adapt their old engines, and it wasn't like they could borrow an engine from another country that already ran on 91. I mean, that would be crazy.
Actually, they could.
So that's exactly what they did. Holden called up Nissan, as they say in Australia, and they were like, hey mate, our cars need to run on 91 octane, but our engines can't. So can we borrow one of yours until we figure it out? And Nissan was like, so do I eat this.
What? Yeah, you can.
Holden purchased RB30 inline 6 engines from Nissan, the same engine that powered the R31 Skyline. Lightning! Just 6 months after launching the RB30, the Commodore was available, with the turbo double lightning, which pushed power up to 151 appropriate kilowatts, or 201 horsepower for you jerks on the other colonies. The turbocharged Commodore could haul butt with a top speed of 124 miles per. The Australian police bought a ton of them and they used them as highway interceptors. That gets my pants tight. Freaking Mad Max? Yeah, sign me up. These police models were known as BT1s. And since these things are Nissan powered, people love tuning the absolute crap out of them, taking them to the strip. In 1987, Holden teamed up with a British racing outfit, Tom Wilkinshaw Racing, to develop a new homologation race car for Group A racing. The new partnership would operate under the name HSV, or Holden Special Vehicles.
How does he do that? Just spitting words on his figure out of nowhere.
Their first project was a Commodore with an outrageous body kit. The Commodore SS Group A SV was designed in a wind tunnel, believe it or not, and produces 25% less drag than the previous Commodore Group A car. The plastic body kit featured a fat front air dam, heat extracting hood, slotted side skirts, and a huge rear spoiler. Seriously, this is a bigger spoiler than Jon Snow dying again. The Group A SV was powered by Holden's new fuel-injected 5-liter V8 and featured a few little tweaks. Those mods made the 5-liter good for 240 horsepower. That's good enough for a 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. And a victory at the 1990 Bathurst 1000, only 5 years. Okay, so I'll start to add up, only 5 years before Post Malone was born. Fast forward a few years later to the mid-90s, GM's director of design for Asia Pacific and native Aussie Michael Simcoe was at home with a drawing of a 3rd-gen VX Commodore. With a piece of vellum paper, he outlined the 4-door sedan and filled in the rest with a 2-door design. Satisfied with his work, he brought it into Holden and people started to see it and they liked it. They were like, Michael, we have to build this thing, mate. And he was like, really? And they were like, yeah. So they did. And they brought the concept car to the 1998 Australian International Auto Show under the name Holden Coupe. Journalists and the public got to see the car and they liked it too. Holden couldn't let a good thing go, so they brought the Coupe into production in 2001 with the official name of Monaro. The legend was back. You could get it with either a supercharged V6 or a Gen 3 5.7 liter GM V8, which is sicker. In 2004, the Monaro got updated styling and the Corvette-sourced LS1. Now this car might look familiar to all you Yanks because you might know it as a Pontiac GTO. Apparently, GM didn't even have plans to bring the Monaro to the US because, duh, we never get anything cool. But the story goes that GM North America chairman
Bob Lutz.
read a glowing review of the Monaro and decided to make it happen.
Johnson, why am I just learning that we have a sweet two-door with a V8 and that it's great?
I'm sorry, sir. You get that car and you bring it stateside now.
We'll call it a Pontiac.
Yes, sir. Right away, sir. Right away, Mr. Lutz. While the GTO was available for 3 years, Holden stopped producing the Monaro in 2006. So we stopped getting it too, because it wasn't getting produced. But it wouldn't be the last Holden that we would get in the States. The 2008 Pontiac G8 is a rebadged VE Commodore, and the 2014 Chevy SS is a Commodore as well. The VF Commodore went into production in 2014. HSV produced 3 different models. First was the Club Sport. It got a 425 horsepower LS3 under the hood, tweaked bodywork, and HSV badging. Above that is the GTH, which kicks it, bam, up a notch. GTS rocks a 577 horsepower LSA. To date, the HSV GTS is the most powerful car ever produced by an Australian automaker. Lightning, 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 lightning. But it wasn't the most Australian. What could be more Aussie than a 6-speed sedan with nearly 600 horsepower, you ask? How about a frickin' ute? For the HSV Maloo GTS, put the fun back in functional. Without all that weight over the rear tires, the Maloo is a bona fide burnout machine and probably the coolest thing ever devised by human minds besides Limp Bizkit's seminal album, Significant Other. Unfortunately, the VF ended production in 2017, marking the end for Commodores built in Australia. In fact, that was the end of any car being built in Australia. Holden began its life importing GM bodies and putting their name on them, and it looks like that's what they're gonna do again for a while. Thank you guys so much for watching Up to Speed. If you didn't watch this, I wouldn't be allowed to make it. Make sure you don't miss anything. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you wanna watch more donut content, here's 2 other videos that I highly suggest. Follow me on Instagram at James Pumphrey. Follow Donut at Donut Media. I love you.